That is indeed us. KFUG Community Radio, 1 minute past 11. Good morning, Paul Kurtz with you. Community Service, the show, and 'tis the season. These are the high holy days for community radio. We have an election coming up. I'm joined live in the studio. District 2, Del Norte County Board of Supervisors, Lori Cowan, here as a supervisor and as a candidate for your own job again. How you doing this morning, Lori?
Doing great.
Also here in the studio from the Wild Rivers Outpost, Jessica Sanar.
Hi, everybody.
There you go. Great. So, because as I was saying before we got into this, I've kind of fallen away doing other things, and I don't go to board meetings like I used to, and pay attention to a lot of the things. So I'll just be doing color commentary today, and the real heavy lifting will be Jessica's job. Yay, thumbs up. So, Lori, how you doing today? How's life in Del Norte County for a District 2 supervisor?
Everything's great. Just moving forward, keeping things moving forward, working on all things Del Norte. A lot of good things have been happening, so that keeps things positive. When things are working and coming to fruition, it puts a reality of why I do what I do, and kind of reaffirms why I'm doing what I'm doing. So. And
you said today you just came from a big homeless meeting. What's a meeting on homelessness?
Yeah. I'm usually in homeless meetings. It seems a couple times a week now. For the past year, we've been working with Del Norte Mission Possible and Daphne over there, and a whole lot of different people coming to the table, and taking what we had in which we currently have a emergency part-time shelter into a full-time 24-hour shelter.
Right.
And a lot of good things are happening. We're just getting down to the end there, and really kind of putting numbers together of what we want to do to the building. And one of the reasons I was brought in kind of early on is just to be the liaison of what the county needs to see as far as the building being up to code. But other things have happened. We now have Health and Human Services in there, and alcohol and other drugs twice a week. That's been going on since July.
Wow.
So we have services there.
Mm-hmm.
That's never happened in the 14 years. So that's a big win. We've got things like lockers over there. We were able to surplus. So we've been doing all these little things in the meanwhile as we're working towards the bigger things. And the big thing is to get it open 24 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, big budget meeting, kind of going through everything this morning. So it's a good meeting.
Excellent. And that seems key to just the approach here in Del Norte County as far as homelessness is the county itself doesn't have the sort of resources you can just write a check and solve the problem. It's something you have to work with private sector and other public sector entities and nonprofits and such. It seems key.
Exactly. So it's partnerships. I'm all about partnerships and relationships.
Mm-hmm.
I do not know everything about everything, and I'm the first one to say that. But I know who to go to, and I know who to put together. And that's what I do, and that's what I do well. And that's it. We're gonna have to all come together, and we've been doing that for the past year.
Mm-hmm.
So this is just one more step, and this, we're down to some funding issues, and not issues, but funding sources, and where things are going to go, and who's going to partner with us.
Right,
talking to Sutter, hopefully talking to the healthcare district.
Mm-hmm.
We know what the county can bring. So all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
And this is another component in the overall issue of homelessness. I know that you all have are working with housing tools to they wrote a report on a permanent supportive housing model that may work for the county, that a coalition is in the process of researching how and what that would look like.
So correct. So my first introduction to the homeless thing was all of this No Place Like Home by Senator McGuire back in July of 2016. Mm-hmm. And that's how I got on board and got involved. And yes, so that's all funding coming down through the state, and that's for brick and mortar only of building, and then doing wraparound services. So yes, I also sit on meetings and work towards that. We were able to hire Housing Tools last year. They did community outreach, and they came up with the report. Mm-hmm. Out of the report, what they'd like to see is a coalition of community members to kind of narrow down exactly what's going to work in Del Norte County. Is that an 80-unit? Mixed use? So the No Place Like Home funds are for chronically homeless, mentally ill.
Okay.
So,
and long-term housing again, right?
This is, yeah. But that's not to say that if you had an 80 unit, it could be veterans, the No Place Like Home, low income. It could be a combination. So the report came back with anything from 80 down to maybe at 12. I don't remember. There was a lot of different ones. But that's what we need to figure out. What is needed here? Where will it go? What it'll look like? Will it be strictly chronically homeless, mentally ill, or will it be a combination? And what we're in the middle of right now is putting out the RFQ that'll go to local developers, because that is, even though the coalition's being put together, and we've been meeting with them, and I'm really excited about that, it's going to be ultimately a developer, and who wants to come in and do it.
Right.
Yeah, wow,
And that's how it works. The developer goes to an area, and then they bring in maybe a management company. County's part is bringing in, wraparound services. Again, partnerships, everybody working together.
Now, there's a question that came from Mike Thornton, actually, where is he at now?
Quartzsite. I think he's still in Quartzsite.
Okay. He brought up, this kind of ties into the question of homelessness, and the homelessness kind of continual, I don't want to call it a problem, but it's something that a lot of communities across the nation are addressing. He mentioned that earlier last year, the city and the county voted to contribute about $10,000 to the effort to get the Supreme Court to consider overturning the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals decision in the Martin v. Boise case. And unfortunately, or fortunately, the Supreme Court refused to take the case, and the ruling stands. Do you think that money was well spent on the part of Del Norte County? Did any of those funds that you know of go toward the effort to get that ruling overturned?
So it wasn't to overturn. We were looking for more clarification.
I see.
So that is a big misconception. So yes, it was very important for us to join that, to understand. There's a lot of stuff out there, and things like, you have to, if you have a point in time count, and you have, let's just say 200, we always seem to be under about 200 in our count, in that 180 range. We have to have that many beds, and there was just a lot of uncertainties, and I think we were looking for clarification. And I specifically was looking for clarification. Here I'm pushing to get this 24-hour shelter up.
Yeah, is it going to be enough?
It's not going to be 200 beds, nor do I want to go out and get 200 beds. I don't think we need 200 beds. So, I want to work with what works for Del Norte County, and I hope, we find that the 25 beds don't work, and we go on to the 50, and you go from there. That's how I work. And so I think it was more of a clarification. So it's, of course, any clarification, any help that we can get so that we make sure that we are doing things properly is always money well spent.
And that makes absolute sense, actually, to come at it like that. I think at the time there was a lot of folks, myself included, just knee-jerk wise, this is Del Norte County trying to get out of something that's, humanitarian and something we should do.
Right.
But there were a lot of unanswered questions from Martin v. Boise, specifically. What does it mean to have capacity, homeless capacity, which will enable you then to
Right.
move homeless people out of the parks and other places that are. So before we get into more detail, I want to get into because one of your questions. Never mind, I'm changing in midstream.
Okay, go ahead.
Because one of your questions. Well, no, I
Right.
wanted to ask you generally about just the campaign and looking back over your first term. But I remember looking down here. She's got a question like that, so never mind.
No, go ahead and ask it.
So okay. So here we are. You are running for, this is your first reelection campaign.
I'm in the middle of an election.
Yeah, surprise. It seems like, being, sitting up there in the days, you're probably...
And it's in March, not in June this year.
Yeah, I know, which caught me by. I was scheduling these interviews just pretty lackadaisically, and then I remembered the big change. Sum up your first, 3.5 years now. Sum up, what are you proud of? What were your challenges? Give us a presentation here.
I won't go too much into challenges. We always have challenges. I learned to just not worry about them so much. I think that was probably the best thing I could do for myself.
Was your skin too thin for this when you started?
Maybe,
Okay.
but it didn't scare me. I just learned that,
What made you decide to throw your hat into the Board of Supervisors ring in the first place?
my kids, my family, my businesses, it's my community.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line. And so going back to the other question, was my my skin too thin? I remember after the first 6 months, my daughter said, "Why are you doing this?" Because it was pretty rough, and it made me step back and go, "For you guys, for this." And it made me think about it. Then once I realized, why am I doing this? Then it was easier to go forward. Great successes, I think, are good things that are going that need to keep going. The RN program classes started last week.
Right.
Woo-hoo!
Yes.
That was a conversation again, bringing people together, sitting in that room and bringing Sutter Coast together with CR and saying, "Hey, we had this before, guys. How do we bring it back?" Mitch Hanna saying to me, "I did this in Auburn. Let's do it here." 3 years ago when we started that, whatever long ago it was, did I know we'd get to this point? I hoped, but here we are. That's a big win for Del Norte County.
It is.
That's probably one of the most things right now I'm really, really proud of. The homeless stuff. Was it on my campaign in the beginning? No. But Senator McGuire and I have formed a good relationship. I love him dearly. He asked me to start helping him with certain things and working on certain things, and I did. And you feel for people. I don't believe in handouts. I certainly believe in a hand up. I think anybody can change if they're willing to, and I got wrapped up in it. And the homeless issue, I'm not just dealing with one thing on it. I'm dealing on Senator McGuire's No Place Like Home, which is that housing, which we're working on, which we won't see for a while.
Right.
And in my impatient nature, that forced me to start doing something right now. So then I, all of a sudden last year, pulled together a group of people, some nonprofits and some faith-based groups, and said, okay, we have this funding coming down. I want mobile showers. And we started working on that. And from those conversations came the relationship with Daphne, who is doing Del Norte Mission Possible. I'm also happy to say the funding for the showers a year later is now happening. They're being purchased. Again, it takes time, but that's happening. That's another win for Del Norte County. And the third part of the homeless, is the Del Norte Mission Possible. So there's different roads on the homeless issues, different things that I'm working on, but they all are important. Some is right now, some is just, if somebody is clean, they just feel better about themselves. They're more apt to go over maybe and sit down and get services. The services that Health and Human Services are providing right now at Del Norte Mission Possible are making a huge difference in people's lives.
I spoke with Gloria Bobberts
yes.
just about the work she's been doing and the
she is
trust.
It.
Yes, yeah.
She is it.
Yeah,
She's doing an amazing job.
Yeah, and just the building trust and going and sitting and actually eating with folks at our daily bread, and that was a big thing for her to get out and to do that. Yeah, that's really.
Yeah, I'm very excited, and she was a right person to put in there.
It seems one thing that's happened. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was agreeing with you.
Okay.
Go ahead.
No, do that some more. No, one thing that seems to have happened over the course of the last 3.5 years, a real consensus being built around last chance grade and the approach and what needs to happen with that. It seemed like when the Transportation Commission had their little ad hoc meeting here and had everybody come through and everyone's on the same page. And I think that's the first time I was consciously aware of that being a thing.
I don't know why, because I've been talking to you about it for 3 years.
Yeah. But at the same
see?
time, you're talking to me about it for 3 years, and then Roger's talking about this, and Bob's saying he's going to go do that, and Chuck Blackburn was also involved with all of this and talking about. So it now seems that's.
So all I could talk about is the last 3 years, because that's where I've been involved, and what I have seen happen for the last 3 years through partnerships and relationships is, for the first time ever, we've gotten funding for an alternate route. We've always gotten funding for what's there.
Right.
People always say we've always had funding. You're right. We've always had funding. The difference is we now have funding for an alternate route. That's the key. I sit on Congressman Huffman's stakeholders group for Last Chance Grade. So I sit on those all-day workshops, and we have one coming up the 5th, which is probably next week, right?
Yeah.
And that's where we go over all the different studies. We've done
the geotechnical surveys and the
are going on
environmental
right
studies.
now.
And
right.
Yes.
Right. So because folks, we've got just as many slides on the back side as we do the front side. So we don't want to spend $1 billion to have a road slide away. So these are important. But we've done all these different studies and we look at them. And the most important thing is everybody's at the table. Everybody, just like you said, Paul, everybody's at the table. I don't want to get in the same situation that we are with 199 and 197. And the funding was there, the project was there, and guess what? We've been in litigation for over 10 years. That can't happen for last chance grade. It's too important. So having everybody together, we sit in meetings and we talk about mitigation. We look at each other and say, okay, what is this going to take for you to be on board? You know, whether that's an environmental group, a private entity, the state parks, federal parks, everybody's there. So we're looking at different routes. I walked the back side with a group last August. That was really interesting to see where it would go. So I've been part of that. I push a lot about that. I think one of your questions was that you saw come through. Why is it important for our supervisors to go to the state and
to
federal?
Washington, D.C.? Yes.
I'm going to tell you, this was my experience the last time. And this is just a personal experience, but it really solidified it for me. I went back, and we do a lot of meetings. It's not a fun trip like everybody thinks. We spend a day of traveling, and it's 2 days of morning to night meetings, and then you're back on a plane. This time there was 3 different meetings pertaining to last chance grade. There might have been 4, but 3 of them that really I remember. I not only walked in those rooms ready to talk about them, the people in those rooms knew where Del Norte County was, and they knew our project. Wow is right. That's
Why is
huge.
that?
Because I was there the year before.
Right.
I'm emailing them. We're calling them. One of the guys at the White House said at this last meeting, you got to ask early and you got to ask often. And that's what we're doing. And we're not just asking once or twice. There's a few supervisors that are constantly on this, wherever we're at. And those relationships are built. So that was in November, end of October. And then I was at a meeting in San Francisco in December. And I run out into a couple of the guys that I've gotten to know really well from Federal Highways. And the first thing they say to me in the hallway is, "Hey, we heard you were in D.C."
Oh, wow.
And I went, "Yeah, it was great." And, they knew who we were. And Matt says, "Lori, they knew who you were. They knew who you were.
That's cool.
You have made them and made that a focus."
Right.
And then you talk about the California Transportation Commission. Supervisor Howard and myself flew to L.A. to go before the California Transportation last March with Caltrans. And I'm able to talk about how my children your children go over that grade. How our parents go over it to go to a doctor's appointment. I was able to share the story of my constituents of Del Norte County and what that means. And tell them and ask for that money. And they were all bobbleheads. And that's when we asked them to come up and walk it. Because as you know, walking it and looking at a paper, 2 different things. Yeah. So then they came up again, and I was able to walk it with them in November. That is important. Those are those relationships that are extremely important. And you can't buy them.
Yeah,
It's
that's
so
true.
important.
And they can't be legislated or anything,
No.
too.
No.
This is,
They need a face to the problem, to the issue.
How do you balance the needs of your constituents in District 2 with the needs of the county as a whole? Has there ever been a time when you felt that you had to compromise between those two? And if so,
Never.
Never?
No, really? I guess I just look at them as a whole. I mean, there's certain things that I definitely get calls directly from my constituents in my neighborhood about certain issues that, I'll deal with. But I've never seen it where it was an issue from one district. We're a small community. We're all in it together.
Right.
That's interesting. There are... I don't know. So I think that perhaps folks in District 1 and District 2 are a little more concerned about people sleeping in their RVs than folks in District 5. Being a folk in District 5 myself. Like there are differences of...
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. One of the things that happened last spring, I had my constituents call me and there was RVs along Pebble in the turnouts. So I called maintenance and said, "We have an ordinance. Will you make me some signs and can you put them up?"
They had signs up that summer.
And the signs went in that house. That was a simple ask, and I can see them. They're more visual if you've got a 10 on Pebble that I'm going to get a call for. But you still have your issues too that we, Old Mill just got cleaned up. Actually, that's 3.
Yeah.
But there's encampments. We're working on one right now in your district on Temple. I've been in a lot of meetings on that one. That's another one. So they're still there. They're just a difference. So
that's a good point. That's a good answer
things
to
like
it.
cleanups and dealing with illegal camping and stuff like that. In some areas of the county, Klamath for one, Gasky, I mean, they're really obviously unique communities, and they have their own needs. How do you? And I know Klamath is District 5, Gasky is District 3, but how do you balance those needs with the needs of the county overall?
I think when the needs come before us, we look at it as a board and how we're going to handle it. I'm only one.
Sure.
And that's one thing that's extremely important to remember. And that gets lost sometimes.
Well,
but I am nothing alone.
Let's run the numbers like that too. For the longest time, it was okay. So in the public, I'll just say this out loud. Your candidacy was perceived as sort of being lumped along with Bob and Rogers when you came in.
Oh yeah.
And it was looked at. Oh, there's going to be this coalition, and Jerry and Howard are just going to have to sit there. Chris are just going to have to sit there on their hands, and then you came in and just started doing your own thing. How dare you? And now it seems that things have switched. Now it seems, at least, and I know, and you can provide, I'm sure, many instances when this isn't the case, but there seems to be more of like a 3-2 sort of thing going on, and that the two have really kind of quieted down, and there seems to be at least a movement in the direction of a broader coalition, a unification of vision from the Board of Supervisors that perhaps wasn't there when you were elected initially.
Well, one, shame on anybody to think that I'm going to just follow right behind. I think people who knew me. I'm about Del Norte County. I fight more often at the state level for our county against statewide initiatives because we're so different. And that's another reason it's important that we're at the state level. But I'm my own person, and I make up my own mind. I think you see the 3-2 a lot because it's just common sense on things that we're voting on. I think there was a lot of just, I hate to say this because I think this is just my personal opinion. Sure. I think in the beginning, there was just so much anger, pent up anger with one, that it didn't matter if I said black, white was going to come out of their mouths, period. It didn't have to make sense. And some things in the very beginning, you and I had a conversation about cannabis and some issues in the beginning. It was just done out of spite, not what's right or wrong.
Right.
I'm always going to stay focused on what's right or wrong, what's going to benefit the county, and that may not always be my view. Right? It's got to be what I think is important. I took a lot of slack over SB1. The Republican Party was pushing a prop, and I had to look at Del Norte County. I knew from not just the local people working on Last Chance Gray, but I knew from their bosses and their bosses' bosses and the state director who I was meeting with regularly, if we lost SB1, any potential chance of that funding we were looking for, that $50 million, was gone.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you remember that first vote. I was the only one who supported
I don't
it.
remember that. Wow, seriously, yeah.
So, and that was way different. But that is what was necessary for Del Norte County. And that's just one example. I may not love taxes, but when I'm weighing it that way, and I didn't make a lot of friends with that, but it was what was right.
You mentioned cannabis. Somebody asked about legal marijuana dispensaries being...
Thank you, Hugh.
Right. Sorry, I'm just reading his question. What changes does the county foresee to separate the illegal marijuana growers and sellers from the legal marijuana growers?
We're getting our feet wet.
Yeah.
It's all new to us. It's up to the sheriff to enforce our laws. We will set laws and regulations and ordinances and do our best to follow them and enforce them.
Where do you see, I know that there's been direction from the board to staff to expand the areas, the zones in the county that cannabis retail and I think manufacturing, all of the cultivation is allowed. Where do you see that going?
I don't think it was a huge area when you really what we were looking at.
It wasn't. It was one.
No, and it was more because at first we were very conservative, and we knew we were going in that way. That's how I felt, at least.
Yeah.
You know, we don't know what's going to happen. Let's just.
You mean the whole ordinancing process
right,
going back? Yeah,
right.
yeah.
It's easier to let it out than to bring it back in.
Right. So you started small.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think now we're just looking at areas that, okay, someone's interested over here. We certainly don't want to stop someone who might bring in a profitable business,
Rob.
as long as it doesn't affect the areas around
Rob
them.
DeRigo over
Right.
yeah, that's
Right, so-
every time I read about an ordinance, I just think, okay, this is Rob.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Well,
sorry.
actually, this one wasn't. The
Okay.
expanding was somebody else up in Smith River.
Yeah.
'Cause
Oh,
it
wow,
went-
okay.
Right. So originally there was nothing up in Smith River, and so
Mm-hmm.
it got expanded about that way. And I think we'll always look at it. What's best. But no, we definitely started small, and with the intent of letting go a little bit.
And at the time, I was like critical about, come on, because I looked at it as just being sort of, this sort of knee-jerk conservative reaction, as opposed to say something that had a little more wisdom involved. And then now looking back, and like everybody around us is just going crazy, and all these things are going on, and we've just been, okay, it's just Rob, somebody in Smith River, and we sort of. It doesn't seem as much like foot dragging now to me as it does as like, okay, no, let's just wait and let the dust settle. This isn't a huge wedge of our economic pie on the line right now. Maybe in the future that will change, but no, it seemed like that was
Yeah.
Well, the interesting thing now is the city is crafting its own commercial cannabis ordinances, and so
There must be some. We got to look into that. There must be some sort of pressure for them to do that because who's in the city?
I think there's nobody in the
Right.
city now. I mean, but I think they're feeling. I think they see the economic benefit of it, potentially economic
Potentially,
benefit.
yeah.
Potentially, we haven't seen much.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
everybody kept saying it's just going to be all this. Well, it's not all that.
Yeah.
So could it be eventually? I don't know. I would hope manufacturing. Right? I mean, we're in an area.
That's good for
Right.
Jesse Davis, I want him to do his hemp, and we can start manufacturing hemp products.
Right. Just
He grows.
I know.
I've
That's
been
why.
to his hemp farm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I've seen pictures,
Right.
seen products. But yeah, I mean, I see, I guess in my mind, and again, I'm not in that industry. I don't know a lot about it. I'm
Yeah.
learning just like everybody else is. But just looking at our area, where we're at, I don't see us being a huge retail place. I see
Right.
us being a great manufacturing place. So.
Yeah. It is 11:28. I just want to do this. Mike Thornton taught me to do this, and I've forgotten since he's been out of town. But you're tuned to KFUG Community Radio. We're talking with Lori Cowan, Supervisor, District 2, Delaware County Board of Supervisors, joined live in the studio by Jessica Sanar from the Wild Rivers Outpost. I had a question. Go ahead.
All right. What do you think? What are your thoughts on the contractual conflicts between the Del Norte Teachers Association and Del Norte Unified School District?
Okay, I'll make this. I'm a mom. I'm a parent. I support our teachers 100%. But as a governing body, it is not appropriate for our governing body to get involved
Sure.
with that governing body. I mean, we're two separate entities.
Sure. Absolutely. So I'm gonna switch gears to Recus and Takata, to our sister city relationship. Sister city, sister county, sister, I don't know, communities.
Well, there's a sister school relationship.
That's
that
right.
was first, and then there was a sister city. And those are the two agreements that we have, or partnerships, again, relationships,
Do you want to answer the question again once and for all? Who pays for those trips?
I went over, and my trip was paid half by me. And then my husband was with me, and I went over the original business group that went over. And my ticket was paid for a grant out of Japan.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
That seems to be just a perennial sort of criticism.
Yeah, the county. The difference is the county does have a line budget or line item in the budget, and it's $2,500. The city has a large one. They have like a
Right.
$12,000 one.
Oh, okay, that's the one.
And I
Wait,
think that's what
total
gets-
for the county is $2,500, or is
Yeah.
that for you?
No, for the county.
Oh,
total.
jeez. Okay, all right. Okay,
Yeah.
wow.
So it's not big, and personally, in this relationship, put a lot of, I mean, I don't know how many times when they've been over here and we have fed them all at our restaurant, or all of us, not just myself, Supervisor Howard, we've all come in together and put a lot of our personal into it. Howard especially, he'll tell you all the time, but we've all looked at this relationship, and it's important to us in different ways. My draw to it is different than Supervisor Howard's, which is different than Mayor Enscore's, which is different than Mayor Pro Tem Keim. I was brought into it when I was sitting on the school board when that vote came up. I remember the phone call from Recology, and and I remember having the very first meeting with Amia, sitting in there, and the first time Sister City was brought up.
Wow.
I knew the kids that went over. So I was kind of in on it early on. It's a great relationship. Other things have come from it. The fact that we're going to be the lead story for the Olympics is huge.
Right. Right.
I have a couple questions about that. What kind of lasting impact do you think our story or our story, Del Norte County's and Recuse and Tocata's stories, and the story of the relationship that has blossomed out of a tsunami which took the lives of millions?
No, thousands.
Hundreds of thousands.
No.
Not hundreds.
Under
okay.
2,000.
In Japan.
Well, in Recuse and Tocata.
Yeah.
Overall, well, okay, in Recuse and Tocata, just 2,000. Well, 2,000. I don't want to say just 2,000. Anyway, I'm sorry. What kind
this
of
is the math portion I was talking about.
Right.
Earlier, so
You are talking to the worst person when it comes to math. What kind of lasting impact do you think that the coverage of that story will have on Del Norte County and Recuse and Tocata?
I'm hoping a very long-lasting. It already has. We were the 105th sister city with Japan in California when we did it, and I haven't myself, but a couple of one of the supervisors and one of the city council people have been over, more involved with the sister city groups in San Francisco and different things, and we are a story that has caught the attention of Sister Cities International. I mean, our relationship is truly organic, and we do more than any other one does. I mean, we're like the poster child for it. I don't know why. To me, it's just, well, this is just normal. We've created this relationship that we like, and we're just finding ways to go back and forth, however that is. And but on the outside, they're looking at us going, oh my gosh, wow, you guys are just doing fantastic things. So yeah, I think that's already started. It's already kind of gone out into those communities, that Sister City International, that whole realm of people. I think when with NBC and being part of the Olympics, it's going to put us on the map. It's just going to get curious people coming up here just because they're curious.
Sure.
I hope it's everlasting. We'll find out.
I also hope curious people go to Japan and Recuse and Tocata and check, experience that community and their story, because I can't imagine what it must be like to rebuild a city from the ground up.
It's pretty
essentially,
amazing.
Yeah.
I was lucky. So the first group went over was the kids, and I was very close to one of them, and still am, and they were just in the midst of devastation.
Yeah.
And the feelings were just so much. And then I think Howard went over with the first group the first time the government kind of got involved. The kids had been going back and forth at that time for a couple of years, and they were still kind of at that edge. Well, the trip I took in 2018, they had kind of gotten over that hump. The rebuilding, it was the first time they had the hotel was open, a store was open, and they were going on the other side of it.
Yeah.
So it was more elation when I was there versus the depression. And I mean, I'm not saying things have changed, but you can watching them come out of it. It's still a process.
They kind of turned a corner. It seemed like.
That's a good. You're right. That's a good way of putting it. So, but yeah, they literally moved mountains to build up the town. They moved the mountain and built it up 40 feet, and then started building.
Oh my gosh!
To see it is just
wow.
I haven't seen it yet. I want to.
Looking at
you should.
So I'm sorry. Were there other Japan questions? I'm sorry.
No.
Looking ahead, then, as far as economic development in Del Norte County, is tourism our only hat?
Well, that's something that I sit on the Visitors Bureau. I was part of the process with our board to hire a marketing firm and push tourism. So I think
Jumping in with a different question, then, I'm sorry. Are you happy with the website? Because I know there are a lot of folks, or some folks, in the chamber that aren't.
I don't know how to answer that.
Okay.
Is it perfect? No. Is it complete? No.
Was it money well spent, though?
It's a work in progress. Yeah, no. I think what is going on right now is the building of it. It's not even done. It's not everything's done. So I'm not sure which website you're talking about.
The replacement. What is it? Whatever replaced Explore Del Norte or whatever it is now. The actual tourism website that the company built.
The Visit Del Norte.
Visit Del Norte, because it was going to go along with Visit California and all the other visit counties around. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, I think there's probably a misunderstanding of, yes, they're helping to build, but the chamber is still involved in doing that. So for you to say the chamber members aren't happy with something that they're personally doing, that would be concern to me.
I had Mary Wilson and John Thompson on last year talking specifically about how disappointed they were in the new visit.
That's unfortunate. Last year, we've just been working on stuff just this year, so I don't know where it was at last year. We spent a year of putting the money together, and they really have only been started only a year ago, probably this month. So
it was right after the economic
right, and I haven't looked at it in a while because
spooky spots around Del Norte County.
Fun.
It's funny.
I like that too. I like that too.
I love that kind
I've
of
gone
stuff.
ghost hunting in
So
Del
I haven't
Norte.
looked at it for a while. I know that they're still working on it. They're working on advertisers for it. They're always continuously working on it. So I know it is not complete 100%. And a year ago, I can guarantee it was probably, the same
they
old
got
one.
Dead Lake on this list. Nice.
Sorry. So you caught me off guard with that question.
I'm sorry.
I'm not sure how to answer it. We're working on it. I don't know that that's our only economic driver. I think we're going to see more with for jobs with hospitals. I think with the hospital and different things coming in. I would hope that more businesses would come. I've seen a growth in some businesses over the last 3 to 5 years. Some come, some go.
Stores, hardware stores.
Right. So
pharmacies.
I think we're going to see more and more. I think the economy itself, we tanked in 8 to 12, and we're only at 20. It's not that long. I think you're going to start to see some more growth.
Does the county government have any sort of pull when it comes to larger, maybe more regional or national issues like housing? Housing is a crisis everywhere in California, but it does seem to be especially here too. Is that something that county government can have any sort of effect upon, or is that just a matter of the market and developers and finding a way to create more housing or more affordable housing for people?
I think we have obligations for affordable housing, if that's what you're getting at. But, I just had this long conversation in my real estate office the other day. There's just so many things out there that are making it hard. The regulations from California to build a home, you don't see a lot of building because the regulations that they want you to do to a house now is crazy. So how do you build affordable housing when you have to do things to the house that are very expensive? I don't know. Again, California puts regulations on things. They're just it's an oxymoron. Here we want you to do all this, and that's going to cost you all this, but it's got to be affordable. That's the private sector too. They have a right, if they're going to spend the money, to charge what they want. Well, but the state's saying they can't. Now we have a cap, 5%. On rentals, and they're putting other limitations.
What's the cap? 5%.
It's raising it. I think you can only go 5%, and
yearly,
okay. And then there's a percentage which could bring it up, up another couple of percent, and they're just, they're making it harder on somebody who is a landlord. But they're doing it so that there's more rentals and people can stay, and so it's very interesting. It's a hard
it seems like a
question to-
transitional sort of thing to be in, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I was in a meeting at CSAC, and we couldn't even agree on what bills that we wanted to
Wow.
put our weight behind, because if you've got a builder or somebody who's an investor, this is going to kill them. But if you're somebody who really needs housing in your area,
It's going to affect you too.
right,
Yeah.
it's so hard, and I don't know what the right or wrong answers. Do
Yeah.
I think everything the state's doing right now is going to help us? No, I think it's going to hurt us. Private people own the homes; they're going to raise the rents. Period.
Yeah, but I can also understand government feeling the pressure to protect people, because people, landlords, and especially you see this in cities, especially places like San Francisco, where with rent controls and things like that, you can't raise anybody's rent until it changes occupancy, things like this. Because in the past, people have weaponized rent increases to get people out so they can make more money. And
Right.
I can see, that's a double-edged sword.
It's their right. So I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. I certainly don't want to price people out on the street, because that goes back to our other challenges we have, right? So I'm not sure where that's at. I don't know how to say this, but can I afford to live where I grew up? No.
Yeah.
No. It's I've been priced out. I know what my job is. My husband and I got married. We know what our income is. We know where we can afford to live. I think sometimes the mentality is, well, I want to live on the beach, so I'm just going to go live on the beach. Well, wait a minute. If you want certain things in life, you got to work for them. So there's also that too. There's that entitlement that there's that as well. So.
How so? Who wants to go live? What are you talking about? Who wants to go live on the beach?
Homeless people want to pitch a tent.
Okay, so I lost my microphone.
I think we certainly have a percentage of our homeless people. It's a choice.
Yeah, and and I
That's
know
all I'm
a
saying.
lot of people go, oh, how can you say that? But I've known lots of homeless people who went to school at Berkeley, and a lot of the ones that I knew, it was a choice.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Not all of them by any, but there's.
I have not met the proverbial
Right.
family living in a car. I know they're there. I know they're probably even making up most of the homeless population. I just personally, in the city and places I've known, it's been mental illness, it's been drug addiction, or it's been a choice.
Right.
So yeah, that's interesting.
And that was brought up by Ryan Dowd at last week's homelessness in the library workshop too, which you went
workshop,
to.
yeah.
That's amazing too. That was a really amazing
What did you take away from that?
That a lot. His whole thing was all around how we deal with people.
Right.
So it wasn't really the homeless solution.
Right,
Of how do we house them, and how do we feed them, and where does the funding come from? And it was his whole workshop was on how to understand and relate to people with mental illness.
Yeah.
So all stuff I've heard before, but it's always good to be reminded, not even just with people with mental illnesses, just communication in general with people in life, right?
Yeah, it was
how do
definitely-
we communicate with each other? How understanding their position or why they're reacting the way they react. So for me, it was just a good reminder. Someone may have just had a bad day, and if I come after them, I can't be surprised when they're going to come right back after me.
Right. We have I think it's the last question, is about tobacco, actually.
This is from Lynn Zabo.
Yes.
I know this for a fact.
Knowing that Del Norte County has the highest rate of smokers in the state, and the county has been educating people on the dangers of tobacco with the tobacco use prevention program, what is your stance on tobacco policies?
Well, I'm not a smoker. I don't like people who smoke, but I guess everybody has a right to do what they want with their body and their health. I truly support Amber Weir is a big part of that. The board itself has done resolutions to completely support them, and I think keeping them away from kids and I don't think it's funny. Everybody's so worried about cannabis, yet somebody can walk in and get cigarettes and alcohol and all this other stuff. It's like, wait a minute, guys. I'm more concerned about alcohol and cigarettes,
Right.
or just as concerned. So.
Does the county have a role? Can the county tell a retailer, or do you think the county should be able to tell a retailer, no, hang your posters higher, get your tobacco and alcohol posters out of a window, things like that, if you're, say, on 9th Street, close to Crescent Elk?
The city has ordinances about that.
The city does. Does the county?
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know that we do. That's a good question. And do we have a right? We have a right to make any ordinances,
Well, okay,
But,
all right.
Right. But would it? I don't know if that's gonna. It's a liquor store is a liquor store. You don't need. I don't know that a poster is gonna make it any different. I mean,
Right.
I smoked when I was a young kid, and I remember the.
Yeah, but why did you start? Was it the posters at your
No, my parents
right in your
smoked.
eye line?
Everybody in my family
Yeah, I
smoked.
know. It was this- yeah,
right?
yeah.
It was the time.
Yeah.
Everybody smoked. I'm pretty old.
No,
But,
I remember those. I remember
so-
sitting with my grandparents' house and watching that layer of that inversion layer of cigarette smoke in a house, and even as a kid going, "Eesh."
Right.
Yeah.
And then I thought, why am I doing this? Right. But it was just what everybody did. And so I don't know. We talked about when cannabis came up, that was one of the topics was signs. We don't want to see signs everywhere. Well, we see alcohol signs everywhere,
Yeah.
and smoking signs. So I don't want to see any of them. I don't want to see alcohol signs, or I don't drink. I just don't want to see all that.
Yeah.
So I can't answer the question. I guess we have a right to go ahead and do that. Would we? I'm not sure. I mean, at some point, a business is a business. I think it comes down to, their responsibility lies on who they sell to. That's the bottom line. We need to make sure that they're not selling cigarettes to minors and they're not selling alcohol to minors. That's what's really important.
And that's just a matter of following existing laws. So,
Right.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
think that's.
You've taken us through. We've talked current events and we talked the past. Let's talk the future then. Let's wrap up. It's 13 minutes away from noon. We've been speaking for 3/4 of an hour now with Lori Cowan, Supervisor, District 2, Del Norte County, running for re-election. The election is coming up. Wow, where are we?
March 3rd.
Yeesh. That's just a little over a month. It will be a Super Tuesday. You're re-elected. What happens then the next 4 years? What would you like to see happen?
Continuous work on last chance grade. I'm determined to get that done sooner than 2039, which I believe it will be.
Yeah.
Homelessness is always going to be an ongoing, providing services. Right now, this month's goal or by June is to, try to get things up and running, but it's expanding, always expanding, making sure we're covering it because it's a learning process. What we're envisioning right now, I'm sure it's going to need to be tweaked. Making sure that housing tools and the No Place Like Home is done because that funding we won't see till after my term ends, and making sure that comes to fruition. And of course, the hospital, always expanding hospital services. A lot of good things have happened over there. Being able to partner with them on certain projects, whether it was like the RN program, woohoo, or homelessness, and just continuing those relationships and making sure that we're staying on top of making sure that we all have great health services here in our community, making sure that we're safe, and clean. I am truly a believer in cleaning up and stuff, and we have a supervisor that is a great person. He loves to go out and he's a great garbage collector and going out and doing that. But I think my focus is more solving the problem. I think that's why I think if we take care of that problem, we're not going to have to keep going back out
Right.
and out.
Yeah.
So that's more my focus with that, making sure we have safe. My grandchildren are here. I want to make sure they can walk down the street and not, see what we see when we go down to Oakland or San Francisco or LA.
Yeah.
I was in Waikiki not too long ago. It was horrid.
Really?
Yeah, very disappointing.
Wow.
Very disappointing. I could show you pictures that you would just, wow. And I don't want to see Del Norte County get that way. I know people are very disturbed of where it's going, but comparatively, we're not there yet. And I think I want to do everything to make sure that we don't go explode.
Yeah.
So a lot of things going forward. I could go on and on. Airport, we got a brand new airport. I can't take credit for that. That started years ago, but I was lucky enough to be around through the building of it. I was lucky enough to be on that board that made the big decision to go from essential air service to alternative. That was a huge decision on that board. I was glad to make it, but that's what brought jet service in here. And I don't know if you remember, but we had a couple naysayers that said we'd never have jet service. And the same naysayers said, let's use that airport as a homeless shelter. Well, no, we've got jet service. We've got a beautiful terminal, and I think that's important when people come to our community. There's just a lot of good things going on, and I just want to keep moving forward.
Great.
Excellent. Thank you very much,
Thank
Lori.
you.
Thank you guys very much for asking me to come out. It's always a pleasure to come in and talk to Paul, and it was kind of extra nice having you here, Jessica.
Thanks very much.
Well, thank you. Lori Cowan, District 2 Board of Supervisors. Before you go, have you endorsed any of the other candidates?
No, I just try to stay neutral.
Okay,
You know,
okay.
I certainly talk to all of them and answer questions where I can be helpful. I think being an incumbent, I probably have a little bit more information than most. So I'm always open to talk, and yeah.
Okay, well, good, because I like to ask all the candidates come through, what's your ideal Board of Supervisors to work with? We'll do that afterwards off the... KFUG Community Radio, it is 9 minutes away from noon. Coming up at that time, we've got John Pritchett coming in for more of this, because like I said before, it is that special time of year. 'Tis the season, election season. So let's get back into the music ever so briefly. We'll be right back with the Sonics in just a couple of minutes.